Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today, ever since he was a kid, has had a thing for pirates and nautical lore. He's created a brand where he draws everything himself and is a little bit weird, peculiar, a little bit nautical and naughty, and a whole lot of pirate. Please welcome the captain of Peculiar Pirate, Taylor Land. What's going on, Taylor?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited. I know we've talked quite a bit, and I'm glad we got a chance to get you on the podcast. I always like to start off asking everyone, what's your go-to lunch or sandwich?
Let's see. My go-to sandwich would probably be, I always love a good Reuben.
Okay.
That's
like
like that's usually if I see that, that's what I'm getting.
Do you get a Reuben? Is there any particular place that you get a Reuben in Central Florida?
Well, in Central Florida, not any particular place, but in Jacksonville, where I'm from, there's a really good place, European Street, that has the best.
Okay.
So that was always my go-to when I lived up there.
I'm going to have to write that down because we want to go visit Jacksonville in a few weeks. And I definitely want to, so I may have to get some food recommendations from you.
I will give you all the places. European Street for sure. That's a good one.
European Street. I like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the only place I know of that I've eaten at is Angie Subs. I've been there. That's like near the beach. Yeah, which is very good. Okay.
They got Larry's Giant Subs.
Yeah, Larry's. Yep. I've had Larry's. Okay, so let's talk about your love of the pirates and beach and sea life. Give me the origin story of like how this all came about.
Yeah, so I've always loved pirates. Like ever since I was a kid, I've always like had a fascination with them. And then Pirates of the Caribbean came out, and that just further spurred my fascination and obsession with it. And so like ever since I can remember, I've always loved anything piratey. And then kind of fast forward to kind of my current time as being a graphic designer, I was working in a marketing agency and just kind of doing very corporate stuff, logos and all the kind of mailers and flyers. And so I kind of started to get burnt out where I was like, just didn't feel that creative spark anymore. And, I didn't have any time to just draw for fun. And so and then you draw and then you put it out there and it gets a few likes and then it kind of diminishes and then you never see it again. And it's like I put all this work, all this heart into it just for no one to see it except for myself and 5 other people. So it was one day, my boss kind of pulled me aside and he was like, I've been seeing, you're just not as energized these days. And then so I kind of told him, he kind of pushed me to start Peculiar Pirate. And he said, just do a passion project, like go do a passion project, do something you're passionate about and put your creative feel into that. And he gave me the time during work hours to kind of do that. And so I did. And so I was thinking like, well, it's obviously going to be something piratey because I love pirates. That is where my passion lies. So I was like, let me do something around pirates. And I started thinking some more and I was like, the one thing that you can print and do that will kind of like live on forever is like clothing and shirts and hats, and you can do it, I thought at the time, relatively cheap. And then you can print some shirts, and I know later did I find out nothing cheap about it. And so I thought the thing that fascinated me the most about like printing on shirts is I can give them to people and that my designs are going to live on. They're going to make people happy. They're going to live in people's wardrobes. And so now it's not just me putting something on Instagram for it to diminish. It's, me giving things to people that will live in their wardrobe, live on them and make them happy. And so that's kind of where it all started.
So do you have a particular, or do you have a favorite pirate?
I mean, this is like a real, like ever.
I don't know. That's why I was curious. I didn't know how because I'm obsessed with sandwiches, so I understand having like a passion for something, but that's why I wasn't sure like if you actually had like a real pirate that you were like had looked at, or if it's Captain Jack Sparrow, or if it's like if there was like a particular pirate, or just the idea of the pirate and like their lore, like what it was that you kind of loved about pirates. That's why I was just trying to get an idea.
Yeah, no. So definitely more of the lore. I did like go research a bunch of pirate things when I was a kid. So I know like all like, like Captain Kidd and like, Blackbeard and all those like really famous ones. But of course, if I had to pick like my all-time favorite pirates, definitely Captain Jack Sparrow,
Yes.
even though that is the obvious answer, but I have his tattoo. So that was like when I went to go get my first tattoo, I was like, it's gonna be a pirate tattoo. And so all my
I
tattoos
love it.
since are very piratey. So
I I love it.
there's a theme.
No, no, I love that, and that's there is no wrong answer. That's why I was curious because I was like, ooh, I actually started looking up like pirate facts because I was like, oh, I'm curious. Is there really pirate facts? Like I read something.
Yeah.
Some of the things I read was like eye patches and the stump were real because of obviously
Hmm.
like those things are like not make believe. The R and all that stuff. Obviously, that was very Hollywoody. They
Hmm.
also said that a lot of pirates never really had buried treasure because
Yes.
they would spend it or use it for their next journey or their next travel, and that a lot of times pirates were not considered bad guys because they were actually going out and like they would go and they weren't as bad as like they made it sound. And then they had like I read about one particular pirate and I forget his name now. I was gonna write it down that had
Hmm.
like thousands of pirate ships. So he was like
Hmm.
almost like the
Like a
fiercest of
fleet.
all the pirates. Yeah, like a fleet of pirate ships. And I was like, man, I'm like, this is cool. I was like, so that's why I was like, man, I'm like, I wonder if he's got a favorite like thing or fact or pirate or anything like that. I was like, I was kind of curious about that.
My
Go on.
well, I was just gonna say one of my favorite like little facts about pirates is that originally they were just sailors that were contracted by the Royal Navy to go out and like reclaim land for them. And then all of a sudden, the Royal Navy was like, or the king was like, oh, you know what? We're good. I'm good. I've got all I need. Like, stop doing what you're doing. But all these people's livelihoods depended on this. And so they were like, well, I'm going to keep doing this because this is my livelihood now. And you can't just tell me to not make a living. So they continued doing it, and it was just considered like unlawful now then because that's what the government said. So,
That I did not know that. I like that's a great
hmm.
fact. So let's rewind a second because you said something which you don't typically hear like bosses say, and that's the fact that your boss wanted you to actually find a passion project, have you allow you to do it while you're like at work and all that stuff. And I get it. I guess in the world that you live in creativity and design, if there's something that if you get like a little bit of inspiration, it's so important to have like the energy levels of what you're doing when you're being creative and sparking energy and thoughts. But like, were you surprised that your boss like literally said that to you? That said, "Hey, I'm like, I want you to create your own passion project and start working on this." And little did they know that it literally would light like I guess a fuse on a barrel of whiskey or rum and explode like this.
Yeah, no, yeah, I was surprised because, he was like, just take, an hour out of your day, a couple days a week, and just like, I'll give you that time to draw and, re energize yourself. And I mean, he was a really, really great dude. So it surprised me, but not really because like you have those bosses that just want the best for you as a person and they care about you as an individual. And so he wanted me to keep my creativity alive, and it helped. And it really helped me personally because then I started to be able to find the time in my personal time to create this stuff because I was doing it with a passion.
No, I love that. And you started Peculiar Pirate 4 years ago. Let's before I go with that, how did you come up with the name Peculiar Pirate?
So I love a good alliteration. I think
Yes.
that's some of the best companies are, they just kind of roll off the tongue like that. And so I knew I wanted it to be piratey. It had to have pirate in the name. And then when I was thinking about what the vibe was going to be, and the vibe has definitely changed throughout the years a little bit, but originally, and it still is today, I was like, I don't want it to be this like rugged, tough kind of like what you typically think of pirate stuff. Because that's the other struggle I had was when I try to find as a pirate fan, when I try to find pirate stuff, it's all very generic looking. There's nothing unique. And so I wanted to be that niche in the market where it was something unique, something different, and something a little more illustrative. So I was like, I want it to be fun. I want it to not take itself too seriously. And I want it to be something more whimsical than what you normally see in the world of pirate stuff. And so that's where the word peculiar came in, because I wanted it to be that peculiar, weird, whimsical kind of vibe in everything I create.
No, I love that. And then has it changed? You said it's evolved through the years. So like how has your style evolved from when you first started?
Yeah.
How has it evolved from the beginning when you started it to where it is now? Would you think your style and things like that, which is great because that's what you want. You want your brand to evolve.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, like what have you seen as in the evolution of your brand from the time you started to where you are now?
I think I definitely found a style through this because before I never really had a style. And this really helped me find like that style. And now when I draw my stuff and when I look at my lineup of all my products, they look like they all belong together. They look like they have a cohesive style. And that was just through me just kind of finding different inspirations and different artists and different designers and kind of mimicking what they were doing, but putting my own flair on it. And that's where I really started to see my style evolve. And I think one of the things that like was the catalyst in helping that was I ditched Illustrator and I just because I was trying to do everything on Illustrator and but I grew up I came into design through fine art. I love painting, I love drawing, I love watercolor. So I got out my iPad and my Procreate app and I just started drawing on Procreate, which helped me not only kind of get that freedom, but in a lot of my work, it's that very kind of like it's not perfect looking, it's rough, it's very kind of you can tell it's hand drawn and I like that. I think that's what gives my style some kind of more character. And so I do everything in Procreate and then I'll bring it into Illustrator, vector it out so that I can separate the colors and make it print ready.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that was one of the things I wanted you to talk about. Like I think it's so great that you go that route because I know that was one of the things like you wanted to take away the parameters and perfection and
Hmm.
be creative like without bounds and I wanted to ask that question, so I appreciate you talking a little bit about about that because I do think it's so important when you're coming up and creating your own style and wanting to also kind of be within a niche but at the same time stand out and be different to be able to do those things. And you do I truly appreciate. I have enjoyed seeing your brand as it's grown and you doing so many things, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about because, like, from I've known you now for a few years, and like,
Hmm.
it's really been great to see like your evolution and everything. And I know you've sold at a variety of locations and events. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, the importance of that and like trying to find that right avenue of creating a brand, especially when it comes to like creating your art and your brand, but then also trying to get it out there because
Hmm.
yeah, we sell online, but we also sell quite a bit on, in person. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of doing like events and doing things like that in person and finding other avenues to be able to sell your brand?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, and that's kind of where I got to know you was through the events, and I think that was what really helped me grow is I started doing events because it's so hard to break through the online noise, especially these days when there's so many different online shops. It is just impossible, and you're going to drown in ad dollars if you try. So I realize, I've got to go out and I need to push this myself. I need to go out into the world and I need to show up and I need to, bring this to people where they're at. And that was the struggle in itself because starting out those first couple years, you had to find your market, you had to find your demographic. And I went to a lot of shows where it was like not my demographic and I maybe made like $50 and I was, there for all day long. And I eventually found my demographic. I found exactly the who my buyers are, and I found what shows work and then which ones don't. and which locations work. Because I found, like, in the Orlando area, I do great. But up in, more of like the DeLand area, I don't do as great. And depending on the market too. But, that is where my demographic lives. So, and so through doing these events, I've really great gained a following, and it's so much fun to like go to different events like in Orlando or then down in Lakeland, and I have the same people come up to me and be like, oh man, I have this shirt and I have this shirt and I have this shirt, or I don't have this one yet, or like I got this shirt for my husband and he loved it and like I wanted to buy more. And so like that is truly the greatest payoff for me, is when people come up and say that and like tell me how much they love my shirts, or tell me that's like their favorite shirt in their wardrobe and they wear it all the time. And so that's kind of that's my favorite thing, and where I get the most joy. And recently I've started to try and break into the wholesale market, and I've gotten a few different leads there. The neighbors down in Orlando, and then just recently in Gatorland.
I saw that. I was going to ask you about
Yes.
that. Now, are those that you've gone where you've approached them or they've approached you? And I've always and then have you thought of, or you looked into fair? Have you done stuff like looking at fair and things like that as well?
I Fair's next on my list. Right now, it's literally just me sending emails to like every single surf shop, or like, because again, know your demographic. And I'm like, surf shops, I feel like is where my stuff lives. So I just go out and I find. I've been to a few, I've approached a few, and I've given them my line sheet, and I'm like, here you go. If you're ever interested, like, let me know. And I've emailed a bunch too. And that's kind of where I got Gatorland. It was funny because I emailed like a dozen different like little local surf shops, and I was like, oh, this would be great. And I'm just starting out with wholesale, so I didn't want to get anything, like I wanted to start smaller. So I was like, let me get all these smaller surf shops, smaller beach shops. I emailed like a dozen of them, and then I was like, you know what? Just for kicks and giggles, let me email Gatorland. They're too big. They're not gonna, have any time for me, but let me email them too and send them my line sheet. And out of all the ones I emailed, they were the ones I heard back from. And they invited me in. They're like, oh, do you want to come in and talk and we'll look at your stuff? So I went there, and they were really impressed by it. And they loved the style. They loved just anything that had a gator on it, they loved. So they bought a huge amount, and that was amazing. So that kind of fueled
Did
me.
they talk to you about possibly doing, like, have you thought of like, maybe I'll come up with some stuff for them, like, and talk to them about creating peculiar pirate Gatorland type stuff like that, new designs that
Hmm.
include gators in it as well?
I did. That was in my pitch when I emailed them. I was like, if you ever want to do a collaboration, let me know. I will draw something up and then we can work together on it. So I think kind of when I check back in with them on how the sales are going, I'll kind of push that again and see.
No, I love that. And I think you could even work, and it could even work the route of like, if you come up with like a doodle or a design, you're like, hey, what do you think of this?
Mhm.
I was doodling on Procreate, and maybe this could work. I was curious, have you ever done or ever looked into doing like something with Gasparilla or anything like that?
I'm still trying to figure out Gasparilla, because I looked into it one time, and I found out what I looked into, they said that they don't like Gasparilla doesn't do vendors. They only do food trucks and food items, but you can't be like a vendor there. But then I've talked to other people who said they've been a vendor there. So I'm trying to figure out how to get
Yeah,
into
you
Gasparilla.
I was gonna
They
say
are
you may
hard
have
to
to
figure out, but
I was gonna say you may have to do like a field trip and go out there and
mhm,
do like a gorilla style, or I guess
just set up.
pirate style setup where you like bring a backpack or something and like hand out stickers, like,
Yeah,
peculiar
yeah.
pirate stickers everywhere, and be like, hey, you like pirates? I love pirates too, type of thing. I think that would be a lot of fun. What do you think you've gotten out of, like, because obviously it's created a passion, ignited a fire. What do you think has been like one of the benefits, or one of the things that you've appreciated or enjoyed being able to start this brand now and do this?
Yeah. So probably, like I said, probably the people I meet and the connections I make. Like I met you, and I've met so many wonderful, amazing, talented creatives and people through this brand, just setting up and going to different markets and talking to other vendors and talking to the people there. And I've made so many, like I've met like Atomic Drinkware and like just so many amazing people through this, Hellcats. And so that wouldn't have been possible without it, because this gave me the leeway to talk to them, to make friends with them, to meet them. And I think that's been one of my favorite things that this brand has done.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about these things is like you creating that community and being able to see all the meet different people and create that community and that culture. What your so creative process wise, how do you because obviously you do a really good job with like the graphics, and then there's a good pun. Like I'm actually wearing, and I'll see if I could flip
I
over to
saw it.
see.
I was like, oh,
Yeah,
he's rocking.
What this one is a great one. Like you have a lot of good ones, obviously, but this one is a great one because it says I'm a wreck, but I'm still in one piece. And I think it's like so appropriate, and it's so great because it's just like it's got a little bit of everything. So I always love to hear people's creative process. Like where do you keep them? Where do you when do they come up? Like how do you purposely brainstorm? Are you purposely like what's your creative process? And then where do you store and hold all this?
So I try to brainstorm. Sometimes I will sit, usually sometimes I'll have some time where I'm like, okay, I have a couple hours to myself. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to draw. And that's never when it comes, because you're trying too hard. It's always when I'm just sitting there and I'm just, let me just break out the iPad. I have a few minutes. And then that's when, creativity actually comes, or at 2 a.m. It's a lot of time. It's like 2 a.m. in the morning. Now I have a baby and it's hard to do that. But I actually, I do love a pun. And that's one of the things I've built my brand on, is the different puns and sayings. And I found that's what resonates with people, is like these fun sayings that that people can get behind and that people can like really identify with. I think that's why I've done really well. But that actually comes just organically. Like I'll think of it and I'll write it down in a notes app. I have like a notes app for Peculiar Pirate of whenever I have an idea, or like creatively, or I want to do this, or I want to create this. And then I have within that notes app, I have another notes app that is just like sayings, and I'll just workshop things or write things down. Even if it's not like a full saying, it's just an idea. I'll throw it in there and then I'll come back to it later when I'm in a creative spot, and I'll be like, let me workshop this like little like word and see if I can't get something fun out, or an illustration out of it.
Yeah, no, I totally, that's kind of exactly how I have it. Like I have way too many places. Like I write stuff down, but I do have a notes app. I also have a Google Keep. I don't know if you've ever used that or heard of that. No. Google Keep. It's kind of like, I guess, a OneNote or something like that. But what I use it for is like, I'll use it for the same idea as the Note app. But what I'll do is it creates like little like squares. And if I have like an idea, or if I see something that inspires me, like, ooh, what about this? I may take a picture of it, or I'll almost like a Pinterest board, but I'll throw it in there, and it keeps everything, along with, since I use a Gmail account, it keeps all of it. And then I can literally go back to it. And I have ideas for like, oh, if I wanted to do sports teams, or if I wanted to do sayings, or and I'll just do that. But I also use the Note apps the same way as well. My problem is with the Note apps, I have so many different Note apps open, and so many, because I have stuff for like my podcast. I have like different folders in my Note apps, that it gets so crazy that I'm like, where is that again? And so that's why I do like the Google Keep sometimes. Like when I start getting ideas, or even like a doodle, I'll sometimes will take a snap of it and put it in there, and then start workshopping different like puns or ideas. But it is amazing. Like I do think it's so important what you said about like writing those ideas down, especially like you said, having a newborn, when there's 2 a.m. ideas. Like I've had so many of those where I would like literally like talk into my phone and leave myself a voice memo or something, just to try to remember what it is. Because if I tried to text it or write it in the dark, it couldn't. It would just look like scribble scratch. So I totally understand that, and that's like and I love that idea of that. And then what about when it comes to the concept of releasing art? Because I'm pretty sure you have like a tons of ideas, and then and they're all kind of like percolating and marinating in there. And then like now you're just, and then figuring out like when do I want to release this, when do I want to do that,
Mm-hmm.
like that to me is like an art form. I still have not mastered this. I've been doing it for 13 years and I still feel like I mess up. I'm either behind, like it doesn't get printed in time, or I'm like that. Do you have like a goal or an idea of like every quarter I want to release certain things, or I want to have certain things, or I want to do them as a series? Like what's your methodology or thoughts for like releasing product and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's definitely not to a science. That is like one thing I'm like I need to get better at is like having it more like releasing it on a schedule. Right now, it's like when I have enough where I have enough content that I feel good about, I'll get it printed in some shirts and some stickers and some pins and then release it. But it's not until I've created enough of it to where I'm like, okay, I can make a batch and I can release it. Usually there is a theme that goes with it. Like right now I've released some summer stuff that's very like summery and very like beach vibes. So I try to coincide the things within the season because that's, you know, what drives the sales. And I try to think ahead, like for Christmas, I'm, you know, in the summertime, I'm trying to think of Christmas stuff so that I can get ready for like all the Christmas markets, and same thing for Halloween. So but yeah, it's definitely more of just a okay, I have this batch of content, let me release it into the world now, let me figure out what I want to get made into it. But I have been strategic in trying to differentiate what my products are because I started out with just shirts and stickers, and now I'm trying to get into the pins and lanyards and air freshener and do things that really make sense with my brand and things that I can produce that are not as high dollar, like not, it doesn't cost me as much to produce, so that I can have smaller things that both people can buy because, you know, as you know, we have to sell shirts for like $30+ and not everyone can buy a shirt for $30+. So I like having like pins and lanyards that still has cool art on it that is $5 or like $6 that people can buy.
No, I agree 100%, and I'm glad you brought that up because that I think to me like I use to give you an idea, I sell quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit. I can't say I sell like I'm not a super seller, but I do sell in fair. But
Mm.
what I sell in fair is I actually don't even sell my shirts or my hats. I literally via fair, I actually just do my stickers, pins, and all my other things. And the reason I do that is because it's a low point where people can enter, and then I basically
Mm-hmm.
then reach out to those brands when they start buying from me, and I'll be like, hey, if you're interested in shirts, we can discuss that because it is a little bit different because you and I are similar in the sense that we have to keep inventory, so it's not, and
Mm-hmm.
then we use a printer to print our stuff, and it's not one of those things where you can just like, oh, yeah, I have all this number in stock, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit different when it comes to that. But with pins and stickers, it's a little bit easier to have,
Oh yeah.
you may have 100 of something, so you can give 12 here or 24 here,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So I think that's awesome that you're doing the idea of the lanyards and all of that. I may have to talk to you about air freshener because I that's something I've been playing around with, an idea. So
Got
we'll
you.
have to talk about that. But no, I love that you've kind of figured that out. And then because for me, what happens is I've tried to do some themes, and then
Mm-hmm.
I also will go and then I'll have this idea, and the idea will just skyrocket, and I'll be like, it's
Mm-hmm.
got to get done. We got to get this done now. Like it's burning through the money's burning through my pocket. I need to get it. I
Mm-hmm.
need to give it to someone so that I can make it. So that's why sometimes it happens where I'm like, I try to be methodical, and sometimes it just does it, and I'm just like, oh, I got this idea. We're gonna get the, like, a perfect example. I just released the shirt before I went to New York that it was like a bodega type shirt for
Mm-hmm.
breakfast, bacon, egg, and cheese. I had no concept to do that. I just wanted to get it done because I was going to go to New York, and I was like, I want to go to New York and wear this, and I want other people
Exactly.
to do it. And I'm like, in New York, because I've had other people talk to me about it, does it fit anything? No, it's just going to be
Mm-hmm.
released, and we're just going to see what happens. So we'll see where it goes. I just released it, so I'm like, we'll see how it does. But it's just one
Yeah.
of those where I always find that part interesting on that. So I know you like to watercolor, and I know you have a little one. So I am kind of curious, what do you do on your free time when you're not working, not doing Peculiar Pirates, doing an event? What, like, do you have free time, and what do you usually do for free time if you do?
These days, sleeping. But no, no. I mean, usually I'm either like hanging out with my kid. He's like 8 months now, so he requires all the attention. So usually I'm hanging out with him, or I love the beach. I love, like, I'm very outdoorsy. That's why I love Florida. So I love like the beach and the pool and the springs. So I'm usually at one of those places, just kind of enjoying that.
Have you and I'm sorry because I hate that
Hmm.
I say I come up because well first I'll ask I'm going to tell you my idea and then I'm going to ask you a question about the idea, not my idea but just ideas in general.
Hmm.
Have you ever thought of, since you love beach
Hmm.
and you're pirate, have you ever done, I don't think I've seen one, like a pirate, I've never seen a pirate surfing, like a pirate surf club where there's some form of pirate. I don't, so just something to think about. I know I've seen gators as surfboards, but I've
Yeah,
never seen a
but
pirate on a
no.
surfboard. Maybe the surfboard is a plank, and it's
Hmm.
plank boarding, or I don't know. I'm just going to throw that out there. But at the same time, as I threw that out there, I'm going to say, how do you feel about when, like, do your customers come and see things and then start asking you or come up with ideas and things like that? Like, I'm always intrigued by like how when people have ideas, what,
Hmm.
like, and sometimes they may be spot on, great, and then other times they may not just understand what your brand's about. So I'm just always curious, like, how do you handle your, when you have people come up to you and go, "Oh, peculiar pirate, very cool. Oh, what about
Hmm.
you do, I don't know, what if you did a pirate with oranges?"
Oh
Like
yeah.
something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
how do
yeah.
you,
All the
what's
time.
your reaction to that? Because I get that quite often, so that's why I'm always
Oh,
curious on like what other brands get.
all the time. Before though, it's funny you mentioned the pirate on the surfboard, because I do, in my Procreate app, there is an art board with, it's a skeleton, like a pirate skeleton on a
Yes,
surfboard. And
yes,
so I have been playing around with that. I think at the time I was drawing it and I just wasn't feeling it. It just
yes.
wasn't going anywhere. So I was like, let me show. There's like dozens and dozens of art boards where it has a rough drawing. I just wasn't feeling it. I just shelved it, and then sometimes I'll come back to those like months and months or a year later, and I'm like, let me revisit this idea, and I'll start drawing it again with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. And sometimes they still don't go anywhere, and sometimes they do. And I like will reconcept it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm really liking this now. So I do have him in there. Maybe he'll get created. I'll have to go revisit him now that
That'd be
you've
great.
refreshed my
Yeah,
memory on
no, I
him.
love that.
But anyways, yes, go, oh, all the time. I'm it literally, sometimes I enjoy it, and then other times I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you just want to be the designer too? Because it's like a lot of times, like, what if you do this? Or like, do you have this in, like, this color
Oh,
or in this style or as a tank top? And I try to be polite, but I'm like, I have a budget, my dude. I can only produce so much, and it's expensive to produce, in every color, in every style. So I try to make everyone happy, but you can't always make everyone happy. But yes, you always have the people who are like, what if you did this? Or I would love this. And I'm like, I'll write that down. Thank you.
you nailed it on the head. I think I must get that so often. Like, oh, do you have that in a tank top? Or what if you did
Hmm.
women's cuts? Or what if you did this? And I'd be like,
All
listen,
the women's cuts.
I would, yeah, and I said I would love to, but you do realize that these things are being printed. It's not like I can just hit a button and it prints on something and I just give it to you. I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't have the inventory, and I'm like, and unfortunately, when it comes to a clothing brand, unless I'm not big enough to be able to produce that or to do a different
Hmm.
color. I was like, when you go to a store, like, yes, if you go to like, an online thing that like does a print, like print a garment or whatever, you can pick the color shirt you want and all that stuff. But like the way we're doing it is just like we're basically we're like literally a store grabbing something off a rack. I was like, they
Yeah.
don't typically have that design in multiple colors. So it is very interesting when it comes to that, and that's why I always love to hear other, like, I always, it's kind of like, not that I want misery loves company, but I just want to know, like, do other
Yes.
people get what I get, because I get so often of
All
it
the
that
time.
it just kind of happens all the time. No, man, I totally get it. So I love to ask my guests lately, to
Mhm.
manifest things. So I want to ask you, what do you want to manifest for yourself and for the peculiar pirate?
Gasparilla for one, because again, like everyone always tells me you need to be in Gasparilla, and I'm like, I'm trying to find a way to get in. But But also just more of the, as I enter into this new era of like me trying to get into more wholesale, just kind of that. I mean, that was next on my list. So you mentioned fair, and next on my list was to kind of look into fair and, look into getting some products on there. Probably like what put pins and stickers and a lot of your low cost stuff that we have massive quantities of. But yeah, that's what I want to kind of manifest, because that's this year. That's what I'm working towards, is more wholesale plate sales.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And it is a game changer when you can start building some of that, and then you're getting like you get like three revenue streams of like online sales in
Mm-hmm.
like markets, but then you also have the fair ones, which is like that just come in and you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go handle that and take care. So I think that's always a good one. What advice do you have for someone wanting to start something?
I would say just do it. Because I feel like at first when I started this, I was trying to plan everything out. I was trying to have everything perfect. And it's funny because like I planned everything out. I had like a website set up. I had the Instagram. I had all these designs. And then I like hit published and entered into the world. And it was like, is this all? Are we live? Like, it just, you build it up in your head so much that it's kind of anticlimactic when it's like there. So I would say just do it, just get it. And it wasn't until I started just like doing markets and doing, just stopped planning and trying and just went out and did, is when I actually started to see results. Because I was trying to like plan out, like, how can I get the most reach on Instagram, and how can I get the most reach with my website, and it was just driving me crazy. And then finally I was just like, I'm just going to sign up for some markets. I'm just going to go out and promote my stuff myself. And that's when I actually started to see return and build a fan base and start to sell. So I would say just go out there, get dirty, and do it.
I love that. I love that. I have some I do have some last pirate questions and peculiar pirate questions. So we'll go first, peculiar pirate questions. What was your first design? And then what has been your most popular design?
My first design. So my first design was actually the chill to the bone with the skeleton in the flamingo float. And it's funny because he was my very first design, and he's still probably one of my favorite designs.
It's awesome.
I've printed him on like pins and stickers, and I'm working on a hat right now with him. I'm like, he's low key like the unofficial mascot, because I do love him. And so he was back when I was printing. I was trying to print them myself, and so he's the first, and he's still stuck around. The most popular design, that varies. I think one of the overall most popular though is definitely the I'm a wreck shirt, the one you have, because people love it. I think they can relate to it. It's such a human thing to say and such a human thing to feel, that's always like the one that people laugh at and the one that people always like gravitate towards.
No, I agree. Again, you have some really good ones, and I love it because it's got like you run into the pirate world, and you kind of, and everything from what I've read and like on my notes and all that stuff, which I always loved, was like the fact that it's like a little bit weird, peculiar,
Hmm.
and it's true. Like it's like you got just enough classic pirate aesthetics, but then you got enough modern spin and some fun puns to it, so which makes it really such a fun brand. The last question before we start wrapping up:
Hmm.
do you have a favorite Pirates of the Caribbean quote? Because I know in your notes you mentioned, and in your notes to me, that you actually know, and we're not gonna test you. I just want to know is, do you
We
have a
have two
favorite?
hours.
Yeah, do you have a favorite pirate quote in the Pirates of the Caribbean? Like do you have a favorite movie quote from that, or like a motto or anything like that you go by?
I always get quoted the "Why is the rum always gone?" That's always the one people quote at me whenever they find out that I love pirates. But One of my favorite quotes, and it's funny that you say that because I'm actually wearing the shirt that is my one very subtle Pirates of the Caribbean shirt. I have a couple like Dead Men Tell No Tales, but this one has a ship on the back and it says "Bring me that horizon," which is what that Jack Sparrow says at the end of the first film. And I feel like it's such a like an iconic thing for the franchise, but it's also to me like a very like hopeful saying, bring me that horizon, bring me that new day, bring me that new beginning. And so I love the saying, and so I made a shirt out of it, and I think it's just such a inspirational kind of saying too.
No, I think it's great. I'm super excited. I'm glad we got a chance to do this. I think it's been super great. How can people follow you? Where can give them, even though it's going to be in the show notes and all of that, tell people how they can follow you, do some shopping online and all of that.
Yeah, so I mean, super simple. It's just Peculiar Pirate, peculiarpirate.com, Peculiar Pirate on Facebook, Instagram, trying to be on TikTok, all the things. So yeah, just search Peculiar Pirate, and I should pop up because it's not a popular name. So yeah, so definitely visit, give me a follow, visit my website, all that good stuff.
That's fantastic. Taylor, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I always love getting to chat with you at markets and everything, and I'm glad we got a chance to do this. And I got to kind of share your story and kind of do all that. And I figure, I figure any exposure that we can help get more people to get on board, or if not, they're gonna have to walk the plank type of thing. Because I know,
Right.
and I do love that you have like your like a slogan is pillage, plunder, party.
Hmm.
Triple P is definitely a good aspect of it. So I definitely appreciate it. That's our show for today. Thank you so much to Taylor Land of Peculiar
Well,
Pirate for
thank
being
you.
on and having a lunch break with me. Make sure to check them out online. Do it on social if you see them. If you own their product, hey, tag them. Listen, say you listen to the episode and tag them, and who knows, maybe it sounds better when you're wearing the shirt. I think it might actually be. So maybe pick up a shirt before listening to the episode. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe. If you want to support my brand, check out Deli Fresh Threads. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.